In the vastness of the Andromeda cluster, the galactic powers convened. Representatives from the Orthan Dominion, with their shimmering metallic skin and cold, unblinking eyes, took their place among the elite. Surrounding them, other species of the Galactic Coalition observed, some with half-lidded eyes or multifaceted gazes, each reflecting various shades of arrogance. To these beings, the universe followed a clear hierarchy, and humans, those recently emerging beings from the Sol system, ranked firmly at the bottom. It was a sentiment echoed and reinforced over the years by minor encounters. Humans, unlike the Orthan or the methane breathers of Gajik, did not possess advanced bioarmor, nor did they wield psychic abilities. Their ships lacked the organic beauty of the Vero or the sheer destructive potential of an Orthan battleship. And most disappointingly, humans approached diplomacy with infuriating caution and patience, favoring discussions and treaties over any meaningful show of force. In the Coalition's eyes, this soft species was hardly worth noting. However, rumors had recently surfaced of human ships skirting Coalition territories, aiding defenseless species and interfering in the Coalition's covert operations. Many dismissed it as mere coincidence, or even fabrication, chalking it up to the tendency of lesser beings to exaggerate tales of encounters with a species as unknown as humanity. But as the tales multiplied, the Coalition found the incidents harder to ignore. At first, it was a small freighter protected by a human patrol in the Ligrin Nebula, then a distress beacon from a mining colony that humans answered before the Coalition could intercept it. The Orthan leader, General Kushtak, finally grew tired of the tales. Clad in ceremonial bioarmor, he addressed the Coalition Council with a derisive sneer, his voice carrying an acidic edge. "These humans," he began, as though tasting the word for the first time and finding it revolting, "seem to think themselves capable of interfering with our operations. Their presence on the frontier has become a persistent irritation. It is time we remind them of their place." A ripple of agreement passed through the assembly. Many of the council members had faced human ships in passing. Those encounters left them unimpressed, watching the humans retreat after short verbal warnings. The consensus grew that humans were little more than opportunistic scavengers, emboldened by minor victories and an unearned sense of self-importance. The methane breather from Gajik spoke next, a slithering whisper resonating from its respirator, suggesting a demonstration, perhaps a simple show of force to bring humans back in line. As the council deliberated, a report blinked onto the central holoscreen. A small outpost on the fringe of Coalition space had been protected by humans during a Gajik raid. Worse, they provided aid to a planetary rebellion on one of the Orthan's outer territories, sending medical supplies and even a few advisors to organize resistance against Coalition forces. Each incident highlighted a pattern that the Coalition could no longer ignore. It wasn't that the humans were powerful; they lacked the technology, the physical strength, and the psychic fortitude of most advanced species. But they seemed to possess a reckless tenacity and an uncanny sense of timing, always appearing when least expected, making their nuisance increasingly costly to ignore. General Kushtak felt a surge of irritation. The council could not afford such disruptions. "These humans need a reminder," he said, his tone sharp and final. The Coalition's dominance was built upon the obedience and respect of lesser species. Allowing humanity to ignore their boundaries without consequence was simply unthinkable. From the shadows, a Vero emissary added with a flick of her delicate appendages, "Yes, but perhaps we should ensure they understand this lesson is definitive." Her words slithered into the minds of the others, weaving an idea, an overwhelming show of might. No diplomacy, no warnings. A sudden, decisive strike. A single, well-placed operation to humble humanity and reassert their place within the galactic order. The plan took shape quickly. The Coalition would deploy a fleet near the Sol system, ostensibly for a joint military exercise. When the humans inevitably reacted, they would encounter a wall of ships, their paltry defenses overrun in a single, crushing engagement. The intent was not annihilation, just a reminder of where true power lay in the galaxy. In the council chamber, dark satisfaction settled over the representatives. They each envisioned humanity's reaction, how their leaders would grovel, their people cower. It was the proper order of things. The galaxy needed to remain disciplined, and each species, especially an upstart race like humanity, had to know its place. General Keshtak felt a rare thrill of anticipation, his gaze lingering on the blue sphere of Earth projected onto the holomap. It was settled, the council dispersed, and a transmission went out to coalition forces. Soon, the human species would understand the gravity of their transgressions. They would come to know that peace and patience had limits. As the coalition fleet mobilized, the hum of power resonating through their sleek vessels, a quiet sense of certainty filled their ranks. The thought of resistance never crossed their minds. The coalition fleet surged through the dark, each ship a polished weapon gleaming against the black void, vast and imposing. Sleek Orthan battleships flanked by Vero cruisers and Gajik carriers moved in perfect, silent formation, a wall of unyielding metal designed to send a message. General Keshtak observed the display with satisfaction, assured of their invincibility. 1,000 ships, each with the firepower to decimate entire cities, converged toward the Sol system, their intentions clear. On board one of the lead ships, Keshtak addressed his officers, his voice carrying a confident command. "Transmit to the humans," he instructed. "Inform them of our presence and offer them one chance to yield." He didn't expect compliance. Humanity's small attempts at resistance had already proven they lacked the sense to recognize their superiors. His lips curled in a smirk as he watched the fleet spread out, a net around Earth, positioned to snuff out any human defenses in seconds. Meanwhile, human radar stations lit up, the operators staring at their screens in disbelief as one alert after another flooded their systems. Space Command scrambled to decode transmissions from the coalition ships. The humans were outmatched. They'd never seen so many hostile signals in their vicinity, and the alien technology made it difficult to get a clear read. But the message was clear enough. The coalition had come with a purpose, and they weren't here to negotiate. Back on Earth, Commander Alana Brooks, a seasoned officer with more experience than most at the United Nations Space Command, stepped into action. Her calm demeanor betrayed none of the tension she felt as she studied the data streaming in. One glance at the incoming fleet was enough to understand the threat. She had always suspected humanity's activities on the frontier had irritated some of the alien powers, but she hadn't expected them to escalate so quickly. The sheer size of the incoming fleet left no room for doubt. The aliens intended to intimidate, if not annihilate. Brooks opened a secure line and quickly patched in the incoming coalition transmission. The alien message, translated by her team, was direct. Humanity's interference had gone too far, and now they would face the consequences. After a moment's pause, she responded with measured words, her tone unwavering. "We understand you're displeased with our actions, but humanity has only ever acted in defense of itself and its allies. We don't seek conflict. We're open to discussing terms that respect all parties involved. But know this, if you choose to continue this course, we will defend ourselves." There was a beat of silence before the alien response came. General Keshtak's voice, thick with disdain, reverberated through the channel. "Discuss terms?" he sneered. "Humans, you misunderstand. This is not a negotiation, it's an ultimatum. You will either submit, or your species will be removed as a nuisance." Brooks absorbed the threat with an even calm, her mind already strategizing. There was no panic in her response. "Understood, General. But before you proceed, I suggest you consider that humanity may be more prepared than you think." The transmission cut, and Keshtak let out a derisive chuckle, unimpressed by the human's confidence. He interpreted it as desperation, the last bluff of a cornered prey. With a swift motion, he signaled the fleet to advance, confident that this show of force would shatter any illusions of human resistance. Back on Earth, Brooks coordinated with Command, issuing precise orders. Fighter squadrons mobilized, and defensive satellites activated in synchrony. She knew the coalition's fleet outgunned them in sheer numbers and firepower, but there was a resolve in her team that no alien could comprehend. Humanity had never backed down easily, and if the coalition wanted a fight, they would get one. As the coalition ships closed in, Earth's defenses responded, positioning themselves with calculated precision. It wasn't the mad scramble the aliens had expected. Human ships formed a defensive grid, a shield of tactical deployments rather than brute force. Despite their smaller fleet, they moved in a coordinated response, with maneuvers designed to intercept any initial strike. The coalition commanders, observing from the safety of their flagships, were taken aback. They had expected a display of panic, a chaotic attempt to flee or surrender, not this organized stance. Some of the younger officers shifted uneasily, noting the humans' readiness with an uncertainty they didn't dare voice aloud. Undeterred, Keshtak gave the command to fire. Streams of energy shot from the coalition ships, a cascade of laser fire designed to overwhelm any defense. But the human forces responded in near-perfect synchrony, their ships weaving in and out of formation, avoiding major strikes with surprising agility. Humanity's defense held, absorbing the first wave with a resilience that caused murmurs among the alien ranks. Brooks observed the initial exchange, her gaze unwavering. She knew the coalition expected this to be quick, brutal, decisive. But humanity wasn't about to roll over. Through an encrypted channel, she broadcasted a final message to the coalition fleet. "You may outnumber us," she stated, her voice carrying a hard edge. "But don't mistake restraint for weakness. Turn back now, while you still can." General Keshtak's response was immediate, a bark of laughter that echoed across the bridge. "Weakness? Humans, your stubbornness will be your end. We do not retreat." But in that instant, as the alien fleet regrouped for another assault, a few among them began to sense a shift. The humans' readiness, their calm defiance, it was unlike anything they had encountered with other lesser species. It was as though the humans had been waiting, not out of fear, but as though gauging the coalition, testing their resolve. For the first time, uncertainty flickered in Keshtak's eyes. And on the human side, Brooks watched, her mind sharp, prepared for whatever came next. The coalition fleet advanced, its ships forming an unbroken line, weapons locked and ready for an easy conquest. Alien commanders watched with smug anticipation, expecting humanity's defenses to crumble under their might. But as they prepared for what they thought would be a quick and decisive blow, their instruments began to flicker, interference scrambling their visual feeds and communications. Keshtak barked at his officers, demanding a status report, but before they could respond, the humans struck. From behind asteroid fields and blind spots and planetary shadows, human ships emerged, small and maneuverable, slipping through the coalition's line like shadows. They fired in coordinated bursts, moving too quickly for the larger, cumbersome alien vessels to track. Plasma rounds hit critical points with pinpoint accuracy, disabling several coalition ships within seconds. The aliens scrambled, attempting to adjust their formations, but the humans moved with precision and speed that threw the coalition into disarray. Keshtak's surprise turned to anger as he ordered his ships to counterattack, but humanity had anticipated every move. More human ships appeared, flanking the coalition from angles the alien sensors hadn't accounted for. As Keshtak adjusted to intercept, half his systems went dark. A surge of panic swept through his command crew as they realized their communications had been compromised. Humans had hacked into their systems. Suddenly, command chains were flooded with static and misleading coordinates, scrambling the fleet's cohesion. Through the haze of misinformation, Keshtak saw his cruisers scattering, trying to reassemble into functional formations. But each time they managed to regroup, human ships darted in, exploiting weak points with a terrifying precision. Smaller human vessels darted between the coalition's massive ships, unleashing volleys of directed energy weapons that disabled engines, destroyed sensors, and left entire cruisers drifting helplessly in space. The coalition's technological superiority meant nothing in the face of humanity's adaptability. They watched, stunned, as human ships deployed cyberattacks that sent entire coalition vessels offline. Human fighters launched jamming signals and EMP strikes, targeting command centers, shield generators, and weapons systems. It wasn't simply brute force. It was a surgical, calculated dismantling of the coalition's infrastructure, each move leaving Keshtak's forces more vulnerable. Amid the chaos, human ships demonstrated a frightening tenacity. Coalition cruisers fired back, and several human ships were hit, sustaining heavy damage. But instead of retreating, damaged vessels simply redirected their attacks, pushing forward even as hulls cracked and engines flickered. One human destroyer, crippled beyond repair, plowed directly into an Orthan warship, causing an explosion that sent debris scattering across the battlefield. The humans' refusal to back down, even in the face of overwhelming odds, shook the coalition commanders to their core. Keshtak's composure cracked as he watched his forces flounder. Each attempt to regroup was met with unyielding resistance, and every countermeasure the coalition deployed was instantly countered by some unexpected tactic. As a last-ditch effort, he ordered his ships to retreat into a defensive ring, hoping to outlast the humans' seemingly endless assault. But human forces anticipated this move as well. They exploited every weakness, hitting engines, shields, and weapons with ruthless efficiency. On board Keshtak's flagship, officers exchanged worried glances. They had once laughed at humanity's primitive technology, but now they watched in horror as human fighters broke through their lines, using speed and agility to evade fire. Coalition shields, designed to withstand enormous amounts of energy, were useless against the humans' unconventional warfare, and Keshtak could see it in his officers' eyes. Humanity was no longer the prey. Reports flooded in from the fleet, power systems failing, weapons disabled, navigation offline. The coalition's forces were crumbling. What had begun as a lesson for humanity had turned into a brutal, relentless assault that left Keshtak's fleet in shambles. As human ships continued their advance, Keshtak realized with a sickening dread that humanity had never intended to surrender. They had simply been waiting for the coalition to show its hand, and now that they had, humanity had unleashed a force he hadn't thought possible. An officer, voice shaking, looked to Keshtak. "General, we underestimated them." The once mighty coalition fleet drifted in scattered pieces, their sleek warships now little more than debris. The silence on the alien command deck was thick, a grim contrast to the arrogance that had once filled its ranks. General Keshtak stood still, his confidence shattered. The coalition forces had underestimated humanity's resolve and now paid the price. Alien officers, who once scoffed at the very idea of humans as a threat, watched as the human ships closed in, poised to deliver the final blow. Each of them, shaken and pale, understood the depth of their mistake. Keshtak's mind raced. He had been so sure that humanity would crumble, that the humans' reputation for restraint and peace meant weakness. Yet here they were, with disciplined force and terrifying precision, leaving the coalition ships broken, one by one. Desperation set in as he grappled with his next move. Every standard tactic had failed, every avenue for retreat blocked by humanity's unexpected cunning. The coalition, with all its vast resources and battle-tested fleets, had never faced such a relentless adversary. Suddenly, the transmission screens on Keshtak's command console flickered. A message from the humans, a final broadcast, echoed across the ships still able to receive it. Commander Alana Brooks appeared on the screen, calm and composed, her eyes focused with a steely resolve. "This is Commander Alana Brooks of the United Nations Space Command. Your unprovoked aggression against humanity and our allies has forced our hand. We extended peace to you, and in return, you sought to dominate us. But make no mistake, we will defend ourselves and those who cannot defend themselves, and we will never surrender to tyrants." Her words struck like a hammer, calm yet firm, carrying the unmistakable weight of human resolve. "Know this, humanity values life, even yours, and we prefer diplomacy over destruction. But our patience has limits. You sought a fight, and we gave you one." The impact of her words settled over the coalition commanders like a cold shroud. They had never expected this, from a species they considered weak and unworthy of respect. Yet the humans weren't driven by cruelty. They fought only when pushed, and with such conviction that it left no room for doubt. The coalition had come to crush humanity, and humanity had responded with a fierceness and morality that even their own forces struggled to understand. Keshtak's eyes narrowed as he finally understood. This wasn't just a battle for the humans, it was a matter of principle. The coalition hadn't just threatened them, they had disrespected everything humanity stood for. The human forces, though vastly outnumbered, fought with an intensity and unity he had never seen. And it wasn't only for their own survival. It was for all those the coalition had wronged. Before Keshtak could form a response, another development flashed across his command screens. Reinforcements were arriving on the scene, but not coalition ships. Allied vessels, long silenced by the coalition's iron grip, now emerged alongside humanity's forces. Ships from oppressed species, those the coalition had subdued and exploited, appeared from hyperspace, each bearing their own insignia. They joined the formation, rallying behind humanity, the species that had come to their aid when no one else would. One of Keshtak's officers, voice breaking, looked at him in horror. "General, the humans have allies. They're not alone." And indeed, these species had come, emboldened by humanity's stand, seeking freedom from the coalition's domination. Together, they moved as one, a united front, symbolizing a shared resistance against tyranny. Keshtak felt the last of his confidence crumble. Their fleet, now weakened and without options, was surrounded. For the first time in his life, he felt the chilling grip of fear, not only for his own fate but for the survival of his people. The humans and their allies had made their intentions clear. The coalition's arrogance had led them here, and now they faced the consequences. He activated the communication console, the once defiant fire in his voice now reduced to a faint echo of desperation. "This is General Keshtak of the coalition. We surrender." Each word carried the weight of defeat, a sharp contrast to the arrogance that had filled his initial threats. "We request terms, we will comply." The response was swift, delivered with the same steady resolve that had defined humanity throughout this ordeal. Commander Brooks spoke, her voice calm but unyielding. "Your terms are simple. You will release every occupied world and cease all aggression against humanity and our allies. You will return to your territories and never again interfere with those seeking freedom and peace." The unspoken threat lingered, reminding the coalition of what would happen should they ever repeat their mistake. In a final act of humility, Keshtak acknowledged. He had no choice. "Understood," he replied, his pride a distant memory. As the transmission ended, human ships and those of their newfound allies began to peel away, holding their positions but signaling the coalition forces to begin their retreat. The alien commanders, some openly shaken, turned their ships back toward coalition space, their once great fleet reduced and humbled. In the silence that followed, one thing became clear to every alien on that battlefield: humanity was a force like no other. They were not conquerors nor aggressors, but a species who stood firmly for themselves and others. In their resilience, they had shattered the coalition's perception of power and proved that true strength lay not in domination but in unity, conviction, and the courage to defend what was right. And as they watched humanity's fleet gather in quiet triumph, the alien commanders understood that this encounter would change the galaxy forever. The remains of the coalition fleet drifted in silence, battered and humbled. Alien ships, barely functional, limped back toward their home sectors, haunted by the encounter. The once proud vessels that had come to conquer now retreated in disgrace, and the sight left an impression across the galaxy. In the aftermath, human ships held formation, watching the retreat but not pursuing. Humanity's forces radiated a quiet, restrained power that was as much a message as any weapon they could have wielded. As the last of the coalition ships vanished, human vessels moved swiftly to aid their new allies, offering assistance to the liberated species whose ships had taken part in the fight. Commanders from various races expressed their gratitude, shaken but inspired by humanity's unyielding resolve. They'd known oppression and cruelty under the coalition, but this encounter showed them an alternative, a power willing to fight, not for dominance, but to protect and uplift. In the days following the battle, reports spread rapidly through diplomatic channels across the galaxy. Words like unyielding, relentless, and undeterred became synonymous with humanity. The tale of their resistance took on a life of its own, whispered among species and colonies that had once dismissed humanity as just another minor player in the galactic landscape. To many, humanity's strength was a revelation, but to the Coalition, it was a warning, one that would resonate for generations. Back on Earth, Commander Alana Brooks addressed the galaxy in a final broadcast. Her message was both a statement and a promise. To those who seek peace and cooperation, humanity stands ready to work together. But let it be known, we will defend ourselves and our allies with unwavering resolve. Respect us as we respect you, and we will share in a future of cooperation. Threaten us, and you will face the same strength that met the Coalition. The broadcast echoed through the networks, solidifying humanity's new status in the galaxy. For the Coalition leadership, this message was a turning point. Once secure in their superiority, they now found themselves rethinking their policies and alliances. Their arrogance had met its match, and their leaders, who had always dismissed humanity, now viewed them with a mixture of caution and awe. The Coalition's citizens heard stories of humanity's tenacity, and for the first time, some began to question their own leaders, wondering if they, too, might live free from fear under a different order. Across other sectors, species who had previously seen humanity as distant or insignificant began to reconsider. A movement grew among smaller species, those who had always sought peace but felt overshadowed by the Coalition. They sent emissaries to Earth, offering diplomatic ties and hoping to learn from the humans' strategies and values. With each alliance, humanity's influence grew, a quiet but undeniable power that brought hope to many and a renewed caution to those who had underestimated them. In the weeks following the battle, the wreckage of the Coalition ships was salvaged, and human engineers studied the remains, not for conquest but to understand and prevent future conflicts. Many alien species witnessed this and recognized a fundamental truth about humanity. They valued knowledge as much as strength, preferring advancement to aggression. It was a quality that inspired trust, making them a reliable ally and, to some, an ideal protector. As stories of the encounter circulated, it became clear that humanity's reputation had changed forever. This wasn't just a victory in a battle, it was a shift in the galactic order. The Coalition, once untouchable, had been brought low. Now, any species considering hostile action against humanity would remember what had happened, the might they had encountered, and the resolve that had left the Coalition's finest in retreat. The final message humanity broadcast continued to ripple through the stars, a testament to their ideals and a challenge to those who might repeat the Coalition's mistake. And as the galaxy settled into this new era, humanity's role was secure, not as conquerors, but as respected defenders of their own and of those who sought freedom.